Hey, this is John at CrossFit Dynamo. We're going to be talking about mechanical levers today. Bless you, Dave. You have mechanical advantages and disadvantages depending on how you lift in here. Am I going to teach you anything new? I'm going to teach you the science behind why we cue the way we cue, for the most part, okay? Why we ask you to do what you do, so maybe it ingrains a little bit better technique in you as you understand that we're not completely crazy. So let's talk a little bit about, we're going to talk about levers, we're going to talk about center of gravity, center of balance, and then we're going to talk about several of our lifts and why they become easier or harder and how you need to get into the right positions to make them easier. Is that cool? All right, so let's talk about what a lever is to begin with, right? We all grew up with one at the, hopefully when you were a kid, you grew up with one at the park, right? Can anybody think what that is? Yeah, teeter-totter, seesaw, whatever you want to call it. So, but that's actually only one class. There's actually 3 classes of these bad boys. And all of the levers that we're going to talk about today have several components to them. One is a rigid object. So on the are we going to call it a teeter-totter or a seesaw?
I think it's more manly to call it seesaw, right?
Okay, so what's the rigid object? That board, right? The wooden board, right? And then we've got a fulcrum, or sometimes I may use a pivot. Okay, so that's the bar in the middle that's going back and forth. You've got force, and that would be, I guess, one of the people on one of the sides, right? And I won't, I'm not going to point any fingers about who might be the load. But so these are the 4 things that go into it, right? And if we're going to talk about that around, how that is in our body. What's a rigid object that we'd use as a lever within our body? It's got calcium in it.
Bones.
There we go, bones, right, good. And what's the fulcrum or pivot point that we're going to use?
Joints.
Yeah, joints, exactly, right? So what are our major joints in the body?
Hips.
Knees, okay, great.
Hips.
Hips, very good.
Shoulders. Elbows.
A little bit of the wrist, right? There's also this one right here, okay, but we try not to use that one too much. Okay, the force that's going to be applied in our bodies would be, what's the force? Our muscles, right? The muscles are what is going to contract.
It's a little early.
Yeah, can we get this one some caffeine? Stat.
Drinking.
Oh, I should have had Dutch Monkey bring us.
Should have it catered.
Yeah, exactly. And then the load, obviously, is whatever resistance we're doing. Air squat is going to be our body weight. A clean or a curl or something like that. Dumbbells, barbells, kettlebells, whatever. Okay, so that's what we're looking for in the body. There are 3 types of levers. Okay, you've got your class 1. Or first class lever. Already screwing this up. This is the first time I've ever given this, so bear with me. You've got a second class lever. Anybody hazard to guess what we call the third lever? Third class. All right. All right, we're coming together. You almost got that one.
I did.
Okay, really good. I do want this to be interactive, okay? So it's not going to be just me talking. Okay, so let's talk about each one of these. They all have some attributes around them. The first is how much advantage they give you, and then how great a distance that they give you, and also how fast or slow they are. Okay, so the first class lever is going to give you great advantage, mechanical advantage, right? So you'll be able to lift a lot more than you could just straight on with the object. The second class is also going to give you great, and I guess the guys who came up with this decided moving objects, the heavier the objects, the better. That's how we're going to prioritize. The third class, this is low, or not great. It's good. As far as distance, this guy's, so this, we can do this one long. It's subjective, right? But a first class lever can move that object over long distances. Second class levers are short. Third class levers are long. But again, at low mechanical advantage, so you got to use a lot of power for that. And whether it's fast or slow, this guy's fast, this guy's slow, this guy can be fast depending on how much power you put to it. Okay? So we actually find each class of these levers in the body. And I hope this is coming through on the video. We'll see. Anyway, I'm going to take some of this away. As you can see, first class, I can move a lot of weight, I can move it at a long distance, and I can move it quickly. So that would be the best. Second class, again, I can be really strong with this, but I can't move it that far, and it doesn't move that fast, right? And then the third class is not great mechanical advantage, but I can move it a good distance, and it can be fast as long as I supply enough power to it. Guess which one we are abundant with in the body? First, second, or third class? Yeah, crap, right? If not, we'd all be like robots. So let's talk about the first class lever first. Oh, and actually I want to talk about a couple different pieces of what makes the lever and why they work the way they do. In our first class lever, it's pretty much the seesaw of the teeter-totter, right? You'll have a fulcrum point. You'll have force on one side, and you'll have a weight on the other. So this is your load. I got the four pieces in. I got a rigid object. I've got the fulcrum. I've got our force that we want to push down, and the load's also pushing us down via gravity, right? So that is a first class lever right there. The force is on one side of the fulcrum, the load's on the other. Okay? And these are going to be important because I got a couple pieces of this I want to talk to. One is the distance. You guys didn't know this was going to have math and stuff in it, right? And geometry. The distance between where the force is applied and the fulcrum is called the force arm. Everybody got that? Not too hard to remember. The distance between where the load is and the fulcrum is called your resistance arm. Resistance. And there's a really important one that's going to come back, and this is the key to it all. And it's going to be really hard for you to remember, or at least it was for me. The distance, the perpendicular distance between where the load is in the fulcrum is what's called the moment arm. Short for moment, I don't know. Maybe for momentum, I don't know. But in this case, this is pretty straightforward. This is your moment arm. Maybe the scientist was drunk. I don't know. Anyway, that's going to be really important to us. So I'm going to be showing that to you in red the whole day today because I finally figured out some things that go around it. So as you can see here, we said that first class was strong. Depending on several things. Do I need more force or less force as the fulcrum moves toward where I'm pushing down? Do I need more or less? I need more. Oh, Georgia Tech's in the room. All right. So you're going to keep me straight today, right? Okay, great. So as we move here, you're going to need more force, right? Because you lose your levers. As I get the fulcrum closer to the load, I can use less force, right? Okay. And as I move this fulcrum, what happens to my moment arm? Shortens. Ah, okay. Remember that. Okay. So that's the first class lever.
Lever's getting leverage.
Or just some WD-40.
All right. Anybody think of any first class levers in the body? There ain't many.
Legs?
You wish. Okay. Actually, the one of the few first class levers you're going to find in the body is actually, you guys know about your spine, right? What's the top of the spine?
Bicipitals.
Like skeletal system?
Yeah, and your top vertebrae is called what? It's also mythological feature. Guy holds the world. His name is Atlas, right? So that's the Atlas. You got the axis right underneath it. The axis holds your cranium or your skull, right? And you've got all these posterior extensor muscles down in your neck. So far, so good? Okay, so if we talk about your dome, this is your head. And this is that little axis or atlas right here, and then I've got all my extensor muscles over here, right? Move this guy back and forth, right? So, what's my fulcrum point? The atlas, right? That little bone that the skull's on. What's my the fulcrum, that's the fulcrum, right? It's going to be the atlas. The force that I'm going to apply to it is going to be your posterior extensor muscles, which are on the back side of this. And then the load is your gravity in your skull, right? So if everybody can see that, I can move my head relatively easily. And this thing's heavy, right? With these small muscles in our back. Does that make sense? Okay, not a lot of those in the body, unfortunately. Second class levers. The resistance. So if I've got my rigid object here, and my fulcrum is now going to be at the end of one side, my load is between the fulcrum and my force. Anybody think of something you use maybe around the house when you're doing yard work?
A wheelbarrow.
Exactly, right? Wheelbarrow. So, when I've got a teeter-totter, you can move it great distances, right? You get a wheelbarrow, shorter distance, right? And it's also kind of slow, right? Whereas I can stomp on a teeter. Yeah, can you stand up really quick with it, but it doesn't move very far, okay? So it's slow, it still has great mechanical advantage, but you just can't move it very far. So it's not as useful necessarily. So what is happening here is that the force arm, is this boring everybody yet? Everybody okay? All right, your force arm, always longer than your resistance. Okay, that's the classic definition of what a second class lever is. What kind of, can anybody think of a second class lever in here?
A shoulder or a hip?
Shoulder or hip? What are we doing with them?
They're more anchored on one end. So the fulcrum would be at one end.
So this, well, the problem is, if you're talking about a shoulder, that's your pivot point, right? And I'm moving down here. This would have to be kind of a fixed point. This is where I would grab onto the wheelbarrow.
Okay.
So probably not. But if you think about doing a calf race, right? Your fulcrum's now the ball of your foot. The weight is in the middle. It's either your body weight or the calf or whatever if you're sitting down. And then all of the force is being provided by the gasstrap. Okay? Just take the heel out of it for right now. Okay? Consider the heel as part of the rigid object. Does that make sense? So, ball of foot, gastroc, soleus are contracting, raises the weight that's kind of in the middle of the foot, or should be in the middle of the foot. Cool? All right, so can't move it very far, but I don't know, when I was in the Globo gym, man, I could stack on the weight. Boom! Yeah! Maybe do some shrug with it too. All right. Cool, so that's going to be the foot.
Where's the moment arm in that?
The moment arm, right. As long as, that's a good point. It's pretty much the same.
What's the difference between that and the resistance arms?
Yeah.
Is there,
So let's say that I'm 12 foot tall, okay? And when I have it on the ground, moment and resistance are the same, okay? But what happens if once the force moves up to here, right? And then now my lever's here, and now, for instance, the force is here. The perpendicular piece of this will actually move a little bit forward. Okay, when you talk about the perpendicular distance between here and here, and then that's when the moment arm shifts.
Wouldn't your toes be like kind of going like that? So this part, fulcrum is the ball of your foot, and the moment arm's here, and then the lunar part's there.
But that's an excellent point, right? As you get higher and higher into this, it should get a little bit easier to move more weight. When it's down, if you're going to get a calf raise, if you can't move it at the top, you're not going to finish. I mean, you may not be able to finish it, but if you're already kind of up there, you can just pop it, right? So you got a little bit more leverage over it because the moment arm is shorter. Okay, and I want to develop that really in the third class piece as well. Third class pretty much sucks, guys. You've got your fulcrum. You have force between you and the resistance. So this is my load going down. So you got a pivot point, you got force. My force arm is here. Resistance arm is always going to be more than that. And then the moment is also will change depending on what's going on. That's my moment arm as well for right now. These are all over the place. And let's go back to what you were talking about because you were almost there. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit of anatomy first. We're going to talk about what all guys like to do. We like to do our curls. Cool? All right, so if I am talking about doing a curl, and let's say that's going to be a straight bar curl, elbows in nice and tight. Okay, that's the only thing that's moving. What's my lever, or what's my rigid object? All of them, radius, right? This is your forward, your rigid object. Where's my fulcrum? My elbow. Great. Okay, so far so good. Where's the force that's being created? Now, if this is tricky. Yeah, it's your bicep, right? Bicep's on this side of the elbow, though, right? Yeah, but actually in anatomy, right? This bicep muscle is all muscles are connected to bone via tendon, right? So where's the tendon insert for the bicep? Yeah, it's just on this side of the forearm. Okay? And then my resistance is going to be here, right? It's here. So I've got my fulcrum. My insertion point is force. This is where this is actually attaching to the lever. And this is my load. So far, so good? Right. So what happens here?
Contract the muscle.
Yeah, I contracted the muscle. And I use mechanical advantage because this is pulling up here. Cool? All right, let's look at and see what that feels like. So I can explain it to you. First of all, anybody ever do the sevens? I know you did, right? What are the sevens? The sevens, when you're doing curls, you'll have a straight bar, you'll have a dumbbell. And the way I guess the way I used to do it, where I think I would start low and go half, right? We do 7 of these, right? And then you do, was it 7 of these? From the half to finish, and then you do like 7 full? Yeah. Okay, great. Okay. What was the hardest part of that? Well, but I mean, the end of it's always hard.
Yeah.
But when you're doing a curl, what's the hardest part? Is the hardest part down here, or is the part here? If I'm just contracting, I don't want to talk about the negative. But if I'm talking about concentric motion, at the top, in the middle, or here?
I think at the top to get it started.
You think here?
No,
I can do this all day.
No, I thought
it's coming down.
Yeah.
It's like to get it started.
Yeah, well, to get it started, I could always get it started, but then about here I'd fail, right? So isn't this about the worst? Okay, so let's talk about those 3 positions. Talking third class levers here, because that's what's abundant in the body. They're all over the place. Okay, I'm not Picasso. Well, actually, this might look like yeah, it'll be abstract Picasso. All right, so here's my bicep, right? Here's my ulna. This is the weight I'm holding down here. The bicep actually attaches into here. So my fulcrum is the elbow. Everybody see that okay? My force is here. And load using gravity or resistance is the barbell at the end of my hand. So far, so good. So let's look at a couple things. Force arm sucks. Really short. Resistance arm, kind of long. And the longer you are, obviously, the more, I'm at more mechanical disadvantage than somebody that's shorter with a shorter forearm. Moment arm is here to here. So while the resistance arm is going to be a straight line between you and this, if I look at the perpendicular distance, that's going to be that distance right there. Okay? So as this weight goes up this way, my moment arm gets a little longer because now it's outside the body. Got me? Perpendicular distance. And why is it easy to do those top 7? Is because now it's my fulcrum. Here's the weight. Here's my insertion point right here. If I bring this down, my moment arm, because this is perpendicular, is a lot shorter than it used to be. Everybody with me? Make sense? So, moment arm's getting longer and longer and longer, and then it's going to get easier and easier. It's going to get longer and longer and longer, and then it gets easier, right? So the shorter my moment arms, the more leverage I'm going to have, more mechanical advantage. Sound good? So, bar getting away from the body, it sounds like anything that we teach in here, right? So anytime the bar gets away from the body, it gets heavier. And that's why, because you have less mechanical advantage. Okay. So we're not full of crap. All right, let's take another example. Your deadlift. Cool. Yeah, this isn't, the video's not going to catch this. Sorry, guys. But so when you're, let's talk about the. I'll draw it on the board too. All right, this is your body position, bottom of the deadlift, hopefully, right? Barbell's on the bottom. What's the main lever? Can we see that?
Yeah.
Would you like this to be? This is your spine.
Okay, that's all. That's all I just needed. It's orientation.
Right. Okay. So you got a hip.
Hip.
So is that the major hinge for a deadlift?
Yes.
Well, your knees do involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You actually have 3 hinges going on, right? So you've got a knee. You've also got a shoulder,
Yeah.
right? That's moving around some too, right? But what's the primary hinge for the deadlift? Gonna be your hips. Gonna be your hips, right? Everything we do in here is around your hips. If you don't know the answer, just say hips. All right. Resistance.
Hips.
Good. So your load is the barbell with gravity helping. Your force, primary force is going to be here, right? Lower back, trying to straighten up, right? That's how we're trying to get it up. This is our main pivot. All right, great. and actually this is, I think it's straight. This is your shoulder, right? And this is your arm coming down. So actually the load is on your shoulders, right? Because that's what's attached, that's how you're attaching to the bar. So your load is up here. All right, so you got your pivot, you got your force. So here's your force arm. Here's your resistance arm, right? What's our moment look like? Everybody got me? It's a triangle, right? This one looks weird, different than everything else we've done, right? Because there's so much involved. Can you guys see that over there? Okay, so your moment arm is right here, perpendicular to the load line. As we stand up, what's happening? Right? We're almost standing up. This is our shoulder, this is our hip, this is our knee. Barbell is about here, right? Shoulders are down here. Moment arm gets shorter and shorter, right? We get more and more leverage. Cool. So, if I set up on my deadlift with the bar way out here and I try to lift it, what have I done?
Really hurt yourself.
Okay, let's talk anatomy though, or let's talk the levers here. I've extended my moment arm. That's why it's so damn heavy. Same thing with cleans. Way out here versus way in here. Your moment arm's going to be different. But I guess a really cool thing to think about here is I got this angle for leverage. I got this angle as leverage on the knee. I actually have an angle in here around my shoulder, right? Because the shoulder is the hinge that we're trying to pull the bar in always, right? The knee has got something that we're trying to get straight as well. So you actually have at least three different levers working there to get that deadlift up. Make sense?
Yeah.
So what's the key here?
Close to
Keep the bar in. Closer you keep it into your body, the shorter the moment ring. Okay, now, anybody that was on Facebook today? No. Well, I kind of put a little thing out that said, one of the reasons I programmed this specific WOD is because I wanted to create it as a teaching tool. All right.
I thought you just wanted to kill us.
Let's talk about the human body real quick. I want to talk about center balance and center of gravity. This is a person. So far, so good? All right, everybody got that? Let's talk center of gravity. What's the definition? Does anybody understand what that is? Center of gravity is where if on a mass, it's where everything, if it kind of imploded, right? Where would all the particles go to? Where's the black hole of your body? Right? Yeah. So like if you're playing football or you want to skate or something like that, or you're going to be on a bike, you want to lower your center of gravity to get into tight turns. Does that make sense? You want to lower. You don't want to be out. You don't want to be in that Land Rover, which has got a higher center of gravity when you're going around a tight turn. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. Where is that on the human body?
Varies by person.
Pretty much. Basically anywhere, depending, obviously some people, it's your anatomy, right? Some people have longer torsos. Some people have longer femurs, blah, blah, blah. It is usually somewhere between your belly button and your pubis bone, but somewhere right in this area right here, depending on what your structure is. Everybody cool with that?
So if your mass was like a solid object and you put it on some sort of fulcrum, it would be where your body balance is.
Yeah. So if you made me, well, to some degree, right? Because you're talking about maybe two-dimensional or one dimension, like trying to make my body rigid. Where would, if I could do that, where if I planked
Yeah.
Where could I be on a bar, right? And where would that be?
If you were
And
balancing on a
and,
bar.
and that's one dimension, but we're talking about all dimensions.
Well, if you're on a surfboard, let's think of it that way, I would say. So you can go this way, you can go that way, you can go this way, you can go this way, so it's like you.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that. But that's more like center of balance.
Yeah.
Okay. But what happens when, I don't know, I hold a bar over my head while my partner rows? Now, what happens to my center of gravity then?
We're including the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now
you
it's
got
all
it.
one piece of connected mass, right?
So it's gonna go up.
Yeah.
I was
Depend-
feeling it more in my, right in there.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's musculature, but where would our center of mass be?
Depends how heavy the
Or
bar
your
is.
chest, I would think.
Okay.
It has to do with how long your arms are and how heavy the bar is,
I think you're on the chest area. Though.
right? But I can guarantee you, any weight that you put above your head is going to move this up. Okay. That's just kind of a nice to know that your center of balance changes as you change where the mass on your body that's all connected to your body is. Okay, that cool? So let's talk about center of balance. I killed my stick, man. Okay, and this is called the anatomical position. Da Vinci, you guys see any of that? All right, so where's our center of balance normally if I'm standing in this position right here? Center of balance.
Oh, balance.
That's center of gravity. Center of balance is going to be about, basically it's a T,
Shoelace.
right? It's going to be, yeah, exactly, right about midfoot, generally. Okay? Okay, so that is, your center of balance is kind of be here, as long as you're symmetrical, right? And one, I mean, tennis players have bigger forearms on this side, but for the most part, we're talking about an absolutely symmetrical person. That's for Georgia Tech back there, because I know he'll call me on it.
He's not, he's been very quiet.
Now, so that's standing, that's really easy, right? What about when we're running? Where's our center of balance?
Goes forward.
I'm in this position right here. Where's my center of balance necessarily?
Still between those.
Not necessarily. It depends on torso, dip and all that kind of stuff. It could be 2 inches above my toe, forward of my toe. I've got part of me behind, part of me forward of that line. Again, it's all about balance. When we kip, my chest goes forward, my feet go back, and then my chest goes back, my feet goes forward, right? Center of balance is also plays big into the kip as well. Is that cool? So, the reasons that I make this point, and I'm going to give you a side view here real quick. And again, I told you I can't draw. But if this is my curve, and my feet are here, and the
This person with the feet over there.
right, so this is holding the bar forward of the body, right?
Oh, okay, thank you.
Now, if it was straight over our, if we're, so that's the S curve of your spine. Like I said, not a Matisse. A couple things happen. Center of balance. If you're holding something out here, anywhere in front of you, what's happening to? Where's your center of balance going to be? So if it was here, right? It was here.
Shift it forward.
It's going to have to shift forward, right? Because again, it's part of you. So center of balance shifts forward. What has to happen then to regain your balance? Are you in balance right now?
No.
No, you're not, right? So what are you? There's one of two things that have to happen for you to remain in that position or to change it.
Either
You're having to use force.
your
to-
head high so that your central balance comes back.
Yeah, the first thing, the easiest thing is we move our body into a balanced position. All right, how many of you, Caitlin, when you're like doing a snatch, kind of hop forward, right?
Used to.
Huh? Used to.
Invisible force field.
Then we got put the invisible force field and she's fine. But that's why,
Right.
right? You've got the bar in front of the body. It ends up here. You move your body to get back into that position. Okay. The other thing that we can do, and I had Myra doing this in the demo today, right? And you started making a interesting position with your face. But she was able to hold it in that position until I asked her not to. What was she using?
Muscle.
Musculature, right? So you can get away with this if you're strong enough, but you're burning more energy, right? Inefficient or efficient or inefficient? It's not, right? And that's why you burn out, and that's why you got to put bars down and take rests. That's why your watt times will be less. Better technique, more balance, all that kind of stuff will result in better watt times. That make sense? All right. Because we always need, our body always is going to try and find a homeostatic balance point. Cool? So far, so good? All right. Okay. How many of you guys love the overhead squat position? There's two of you. Okay, great. So, yeah, exactly, right? So, you got the barbell, you got your shoulder, we got our hip. We're at the bottom position. Well, let's talk about the bottom position. Where's our knees in the bottom position?
Going down, tracking over our toes.
With regard to our hips.
Outside.
Oh, outside.
Well, they're outside, but they're also above or below?
Below.
Our knees?
Oh,
No,
no,
above.
I'm sorry.
The hips are below the knees. Your
on
bumps.
Hips are below.
Your hips
That's your
are
hip,
below the
that's your knee.
Below.
Hip crease below knee. Come on, kids. We've only been doing this for 5 years. Knees are always going to, at the bottom position, we want the knees above the hip hinge. We cool? I didn't do this quite right.
That's my favorite kind.
That'll be in the open next year. Put towels on your head.
Okay,
With your head out.
bottom of the overhead squat. Shoulders, hip, knee. Where's our force?
Pushing into the bar.
That's the barbells. Gravitational pull down. So it's about right here, right? What's the major hinge for an overhead squat? Hips! Right, great. So, our moment arm is going to be right here, right? What else do we know? You got some other hinges here. You got shoulders and you got your knees as well, right? But I mainly want to talk to this one, right? So, when the bar is straight overhead, you're going to be in the most powerful hinge position for your shoulder, right? There won't have to be any give there. And what we're trying to do is reduce as much moment arm as possible for this, what we're calling the ideal position, right? It's right over our head, just slightly behind on the ears. Now, what if I change this position and I don't have great mobility, so I'm having to bend over more? Yeah, right?
Barbell goes back.
Okay, so now my back angle's here, and I might still potentially be up, right? But what have I done?
Shifted the barbell.
Moment arm is even longer, right? Right? We just extended it by that much. A couple other things that we might have done is because we're here. Now when I'm here, if my arms are still straight over my head, and let's say we're straight over our heads right now, okay? If I have to bend forward, don't I create more torque in my shoulders too, right? So you got some issues there as far as how that goes. But what you've done, anytime that you're not in that really good position, that straight up torso position, you're going to be using more energy. You probably have to widen your grip, right? The closer we can get our hands in, like Caitlin's, she can almost go straight down with that sucker. That's more force into it rather than having to be out to it. You've got to have more mobility. You take the shoulders at a bit more of a risk. It's just going to be a little bit less stable too. Is that right?
Yeah.
Cool. So far so good? All right. Now what's the other one? I'll call it Don't tell him it's going to be on video, right? So, but anybody think of a person or people in here? Dave, do you have this problem where it goes way behind your head?
No.
Not so much, right?
On the opposite.
So, obviously, we want the bar right above our head.
I used to do that far away behind my head.
On the opposite, it'll be in front of me.
So, what's happening here?
Behind them.
Yeah. So we've created some inefficiencies in the shoulder. Okay, this is going to play in a little bit more. But
Putting more strain on the lower back.
what's happening with my moment arm?
It got shorter.
Shorter.
It did. It got freaking shorter. So it's kind of crazy. If you're strong enough to get away with it, like Mr. Hardigan,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
right?
Yeah.
He actually needs that. His shoulders are so strong that they have natural resistance. And he really doesn't have to.
Pushing down.
No, he's not having to pull into it. It's just great. It's a mobility wad for him to get it back there, and he's in control of it. It actually makes the leverage that he has on the bar even better. Crazy as that is to think. So if you'll go out just like Brian did for about 25 years and lift everything heavy that you can possibly find, you can do it like this.
Yeah.
Until you do that, I want you to kind of be more straight up. But I thought that was interesting. And your center of balance is going to change too when you have it behind your head. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is known as an inefficient position for most of us. Brian makes it work for him. Okay. But at some point, I'm going to continue to try and get him to a better position. Even though he's so strong, he can be even stronger. All right. What happens if...
Do your question? Sorry. Do your we all know length of legs affect squats.
Yes,
Does it not play into this at all?
absolutely, right? They're levers. That femur is your rigid object.
Okay.
Fulcrum is still the hip.
Right.
And the longer your levers are, two things happen. One, they're able to move loads further, right? And potentially with more speed, right? Think of a trebuchet or something like that just hurl stuff, from the battlefield into the castle. But you need more force the longer that lever is. When it's the third class,
Okay.
right? The longer the lever is in a third class, and depending on where the moment arm's going to be, you're going to need a ton more power.
So on your diagram there, if that guy's femurs were shorter, the moment arm would be smaller. Like Heather Little, she's got those short, her overhead squats are like 6 inches.
Why are the best CrossFitters in the world about
Short.
men?
Yeah.
They're about 5'9".
Right.
You don't, and if you see somebody that's 6'1", 6'2", that's made it to the games or regionals, and you need to give them kudos because they're doing so much more work.
More work.
That's
Right.
the thing, is distance and work.
Distance?
Right.
Right. What is work? Right. Work is power. Power is force times distance over time. Right. So if a 315-pound deadlift for me and Heather, if she could lift that, right, I would actually still be doing more work because I was able to move it further.
For the distance.
There's,
So,
I mean,
so
but
shorter femur is an advantage.
it can be, but also longer levers create more leverage too.
Yeah.
Right. If I have a 2x4 that's only 1 foot, and I've got. Okay. Well, let me draw. Let me finish that, and then I'm going to go back to this. Right. So we'll talk about people.
Push-ups,
Yeah.
deadlifts.
But I mean, she needs more strength.
What happens if the bar's out in front of us? Here's my force line.
And then you're
Here's my hinge. Here's my.
My thumb is
What did I do to my moment?
Oh, you made it way long.
Made this one long. This one's got a huge moment now too.
Yeah.
You're gonna dump it every time. You can't. It's not workable. Okay, so let's go back. I'm gonna use the simple teeter-totter approach. even though our body's a little different. That doesn't matter. We're gonna talk about the body. You got a shorter arm. We're gonna talk about the curl again, right? You got a longer arm. And what's happening here? So this is my force arm. In both the levers, the force arm is going to be about the same, because you're only talking percentage difference of where the bicep tendon comes into it, right? So the force arm here is going to be about the same, although it's going to be a little bit longer. You're going to have a little bit more leverage and a longer arm than not. Your resistance arm going to be longer here than this one. Moments. Oh, it's going to be a straight line. It's going to be shorter than it is for a longer person. Okay, so because my force arm is about the same for both of these levers, I'm at more of a mechanical disadvantage the longer the lever is, right? But if it's a teeter-totter and the force is here, yeah, my fulcrum point's here, and I've got a long lever, and my force arm is really strong. It's strong here, and my resistance arm is really short here. And the moment stays about the same. The longer this force arm is, the more mechanical advantage I have. So it really depends on the class of lever that you have. But for the most part, in CrossFit, it's better to be smaller, right? Because the third class long levers work against you, because it's working against you, not for you, right? Me holding this weight out here versus somebody that's got a shorter arm, moment's always going to be longer for me. Okay?
And the distance you're traveling, if you think about it, it's like Heather's,
And that's
for whatever she's doing.
right. And that's just another thing, right? Range of motion is just shorter. Air squat for Heather, my air squat, I don't care. Mine are it's 2 seconds. It's pretty much 2 seconds for somebody like Heather, or yours is probably a minute, second and a half. You're able to jackhammer those a little bit more. Shorter people are going to be able to nail that. Pull-ups, same way, right? All the gymnastic stuff's going to be easier for the most part. Bigger people usually can lift more weight. Mass moves mass to some degree, and we can use some of those levers to our advantage, like a bigger femur when we're pulling something off the ground. You know, we can create more force. Okay, and like I said, I think we talked about it, but as I move this back and my force arm gets shorter, I've got to use more force to push down on it to make that move. You start losing your advantage the further away it is. And it's the same here. Cool? I think that's it. So any other questions? Oh, there's another interesting example of a second class lever that we use in here. We kind of used it today. It's an actual position of the body to the floor, though. Can anybody think of what that is?
Plank.
Yeah, the plank is actually the push-up, right? The fulcrum is going to be our toes. Our body weight is kind of in the middle. That's our resistance, and our force is the contraction of our triceps pushing that sucker up, right? So you're moving a load, not a great distance, but you have mechanical advantage, right? As long as you're the more you can keep your. So if we look at that.
But if you take that example, can you explain the movement arm there? Because
Yeah, so let's draw that out real quick. And I'm going to let you guys do the work on it, right? So this is your body. Here's your feet. These are your feet, and this is your fulcrum, right? Your load is your center of gravity, center of mass, right? We're creating force with our arms. All right, so Raj, tell me, what's the, where's my force arm?
You wanna keep that?
This guy right here,
Yep.
right? My resistance arm, right? And because it's a second class lever, the load isn't going to change. Your moment arm is not going to change very much, right? So when you're down on the ground, the moment arm might be here, and when you're up in that position, it might get a little shorter. That's why it's easier to finish. If you're fresh, it's easier to finish your push-up. Like sometimes we'll do a weighted push-up in here. If I only make you go down to here, can you finish a lot more weight than you can if I start you from there? So that's the question when you're fresh. Where do you have more lever, or where's your advantage, right? Anytime I shorten my range of motion. That's why doing a squat from here has got more advantage than a squat from here, right? Because of that momentum. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
holding the hand, I mean, there are different positions that you're talking about.
yes.
right? So
The
shoulder
reason
pad-
I want you to get your elbows in,
Uh-huh.
it has more to do with how the shoulder fits in the socket
Okay.
and the pressure, because there's pressures, right? There's a pressure on the fulcrum on a teeter-totter, right? Sometimes you'll see a rotten one break in two, right? The pressure for a push-up is going to be in the shoulder capsule, and the more I have my elbow out, the more pressure is going to be at the top of that capsule, and it's just going to wear it down. So that's why I want to keep the shoulder in the socket as much as I can, because that's the way the body likes to move, and it's set up to move that way for millions of reps. It's not set up for millions of reps this way. That's when you have shoulder surgeries and such. Anyway, that's the presentation. Any other questions? Does it make sense now? All right. Is this helpful? Okay, cool. All right. Well, anyway, thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. I wish I had some departing gifts, but I think all I can give you is PRs in about a month.
Perfect.
Okay? Everybody cool? All right. Thanks so much.